tonight, that's completely fine. I will be looking for, so I'll call the meeting to order, and I will be looking for approval of our April 23rd, 2020 Board of Trustees minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and then we have our preferred action agenda items under section 2. Anthony, I think these are all funds and finance and facilities.
Yep, Mark, we met on Tuesday, the 12th, and all items under the preferred action items were approved. So you can ask for a motion to move those forward.
Okay, can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
No, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then we do not have any action items under section 2, so we're going to roll right into Dr. Drummer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see everyone. I trust everyone as well. The county numbers continue to come down, so we're on target, I guess, for phase 1 tomorrow. And I just want to remind everybody, since there are folks out there who may not have been part of the meeting on Tuesday, that the renovations for campus services really for music classrooms. It's not for other than core academic space, and I want to be sure everybody was aware of that in case they weren't listening in on Tuesday morning. Number of things to go over. The good news and the bad news is we heard from SUNY today, and this is all speculation at this point. We thought we were going to hear about the state budget cuts last Friday when the 2 weeks was up for the legislature to act, which we did not think they would act. Then we thought we would hear today or tomorrow at the end of the pause period moving into phase 1. SUNY is speculating now that we won't hear till the end of next week or maybe the end of the month. There's nothing official. It's just speculation from SUNY at this point. So our pause as far as planning for next fiscal year it continues for better or worse. Doesn't mean we couldn't get surprised tomorrow and first day of phase 1. We're also working with the county to try to help the county without shooting ourselves in the foot at the same time with the state funding formula. So more on that. Do we have anything set up with the county yet, Diana?
No, not yet. We're waiting.
We've already met with Michael and I already met with Jason and Dan a couple of weeks ago and tossed around a whole bunch of ideas, and we'll toss around a bunch more when we meet with them probably next week. Saw something today which I think I agree with in large part. What it's going to mean for credit enrollment, we still don't know across the state. Everybody's got a big question mark for what community college enrollments are going to look like for fall and many sector enrollments across the country. But that there's certainly going to be a big market for workforce development. And that's what I'm seeing coming through the REDC is one workforce development proposal after another, and micro-credentialing. We're very good at workforce development. We've been doing that for decades and very, very strong. We haven't been as strong in micro-credentialing. We've been kind of in the back of the pack on that. We're a very degree-oriented institution. But we have had a task force working on micro-credentialing now for many months, and we're building some momentum there. And I think it's going to be well, there's no question it's going to be a big market in the post COVID shelter phase anyway. I don't know what to call phase 1 because it's not going to be post COVID, but post COVID sheltering anyway. So we need to continue that work along micro-credentialing for our future. And some of that certainly would be for credit, some not. We seem to be on a track with much of the higher education world in planning for a hybrid semester in the fall. More and more especially in the states where they're not nearly as conservatively regulated as we are here in New York for obvious reasons. States have freed up their colleges and universities to make some decisions that we can't make here in New York until we hear from SED and public health officials and the county and the state and what we're going to be allowed to do. The track we're going down for we're meeting more online offerings, split offerings, some part of the course online, some part of the course face-to-face, and working our labs on campus. That plan to sort of be all things to all delivery methods in the fall seems to be the plan for an awful lot of institutions out there as we get wind of them from around the state and around the country. Again, strength for us is not a lot of places out there that aren't distance learning universities to begin with are as strong in the distance learning space as we have always been. So that was a great platform for us to start from. But that certainly seems to be the trend for fall. Lots of discussion as one generally private institution or quasi-private like Purdue University, and not Northeastern, fully private in Boston, Purdue, and Indiana have announced that they plan to be on campus in the fall. I'm sure they mean in a hybrid fashion, but they've already announced that they plan to be on campus in the fall. That doesn't mean they can in Massachusetts yet, but in Indiana for Purdue they probably can. And that seems to be the hope and plan pretty much everywhere. And then you saw my update on the university, on the California State University system, which kind of sent shockwaves because everybody assumed lots of people assumed they were like SUNY, and they are not. They weren't shutting down public higher education on campus for the whole state with that announcement. We will be putting out draft plans for reopening is also a wrong term. We've been open, we've never closed. So rebooting, I guess, or restarting. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is for all the essential operations out there that aren't reopening. We're not really planning, to bring folks back in phase one. All along, we've been talking about early June. That hopefully that will be phase two for everybody else. We've got a little more flexibility as an essential workplace, but we're not planning on doing anything of real consequence until the phase two period, which would be at the end of the month and early June, as far as starting to bring folks back on campus. We're doing very well at a distance, as I mentioned on Tuesday morning and last month. Very proud of how our team across the board, faculty and staff, have handled this. So we don't have to rush back to some of the old ways, and obviously it would not be good to rush back. So we plan to slowly ramp up to whatever level of face-to-face we may be allowed to do come later in the summer. We currently have no one in quarantine in the residence hall. It doesn't mean it might not happen again as the hospitals try to manage their census, but we've been very fortunate with the three we've had. No surprising outcomes there. We'll be having a shared governance meeting, a joint shared governance meeting to talk with folks, kind of a mini town hall, if you will, on Monday with our three shared governance professional groups, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of good feedback from that. But still, I guess for better or worse, big unknowns out there. As you know, our enrollment's always unknown at this time of year. It's never really known until we get to the middle of August, and who knows this year. If we get slammed with last minute students because they've decided not to pay a fortune to go online at another institution, we might not even know in mid-August. It'd be like the old days, and could be potentially registering a lot of students at the last minute if they decide that they're not going to go online with wherever they were going, or they're just not comfortable going to live in a residence situation under the circumstances. Either they're not very compromised immune system, or somebody at home is compromised immune system. Although again, if somebody at home's compromised immune, they might want somebody to go away for September, September through Christmas, and not be coming in and out of the house. So it's really still hard to say how that all those dynamics are going to work out. If you read my most recent update, SUNY's going to start doing some advertising for community colleges. There was a special board meeting called by the chair Tish, specifically to talk about the challenges facing community colleges. And the two things that came out of that is, additional advocacy from some very powerful and well-placed people who sit on the SUNY board. They're fully aware of the circumstance and the potential fallout for community colleges based on the initial formula put out by the state for cuts vis-a-vis the state ops. And so we were thrilled that they called a special meeting together to talk about how to better support the community colleges. And the other thing that came out of it is SUNY's actually going to start, and they had engaged a national advertising firm some time ago to market SUNY, to further market SUNY, but they're really going to put an emphasis here coming up in about another week on SUNY's community colleges. So, and that's something the presidents have been talking about with SUNY for a long time. So lots of things changing in this environment, and some of it very much for the better. And still, we all believe, I was on a subgroup of the presidents, the community college presidents today that I'm involved with, meets Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we all meet Friday afternoons. Our best hope is for the state and local government federal stimulus that, to trickle down to us as local aid, through the state and the county in the future. And who knows where, Congressman Brindisi was having a meeting tomorrow with folks in this area, but it was canceled because he has to be there for, not sure when the vote is going to take place on the next multi-trillion-dollar stimulus proposal. Whether that will go anywhere and whether the nation can ever afford it, remains to be seen. But nevertheless, regardless of the national finances, the deficit, and the politics, it is the best hope for trickle-down funding for community colleges here and all across the country. State community colleges all across the country are state funded at some level, along with your police and your fire and your K-12 teachers and so on and so forth. The help would be vastly appreciated by millions of people across the country. So at least there's some momentum there, and hopefully it will continue. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Drum?
Question. Kevin, I'm sure you guys have all thought of this, what you just talked about. But if come fall, if things don't get better and it's all basically distance learning, parents, are they going to that they're going to send their child to a university or college for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year and have them sit in their basement on an iPad for the distance learning, that BCC might be a great alternative to that? Can we get some free? I think that's a great public service thing. And
we've already been putting that out in our marketing.
Oh, okay, all right.
You can't directly, slap these institutions in the face, but we've been doing that for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Putting that message out there, certainly out in the national discussion, regarding higher education in this environment. And, sign of the times, it's just so much uncertainty regarding the potential for that type of market. It depends on the survey you look at and who you're surveying. If you were to ask the students, I saw one survey of, college-bound students by a very reputable, surveying company or think tank. I can't remember which. I've seen so many of them recently. Were 9 out of 10 kids who were headed off to college in the fall, not to their community college. 9 out of 10 said, even if it's online, that's where they're going. Now, if you ask their parents, that's a good question, you might get a different answer. It's really anybody's guess at this point. One of the, another survey from a very reputable firm, actually, that we do a lot of business with, they've been awesome in helping us. The Educational Advisory Board, their concern is, all of the workshops and hype and hoopla and hand-holding that high school students get at this time of year, they didn't get. So if you've got a very college savvy family, you're okay. If you're not in a very college savvy family, because nobody in your household has been to college, you're at even more of a disadvantage than you've ever been, because now you don't have the high school there to help you. For our part, we're starting to do virtual, online financial aid seminars, which are typically done out in the high schools, and they invite us to go. So we're starting to do those virtually, and we've got over 100 people signed up for the first one, and we'll see, how that goes. That's going to help, because that's the kind of support that students are not getting in the high schools. And the article pointed to the community colleges will be the ones to pay the biggest price for that, because we have a higher percentage of students where someone in the family has never been to college and has been through that process before to be able to guide their brother or sister or son or daughter. So who knows, how all this might go, but we're trying to fill as many of those holes as we can. And I really want to give our again, there as well, not just the classroom, but our faculty and support staff, who've been working on these virtual outreach efforts, like our virtual open house, now our virtual financial aid workshop, really just doing a phenomenal job in putting these services on such short notice. And the good thing is we can keep doing them in the future, even if by some miracle it's not going to happen. We had a vaccine by fall and we could get it to everybody and we were all back to normal. We would still do a lot of these things anyway in the future, even if we were back to normal. So that's the double good news on a lot of these virtual offerings for busy people who have a hard time coming to campus when they're otherwise usually working in the summer. So great observation, Nick, and we have been pushing that out there, and we'll keep pushing it out there, and we'll see what SUNY does. We'll see what this national marketing firm comes up with for New York's community colleges as well, which should start in about a week.
So I would just share a couple little anecdotal things. There, if you saw, there was a news story about seniors and planning for their freshman year. I can tell you, our salutatorian, who is going to the Watson School of Engineering, said, if that's all online, she is actually considering SUNY Broome. And this is a very, very bright, talented student that could have chosen many, many universities, and they can do the math also. The one other thing that I would just point out is just like SUNY Broome has shifted to a remote setting, doesn't mean that they have stopped contact with students. High school counselors are still doing college advising. They're still doing all of the things that they were doing with our senior class, only in a bit of a different way. And I can tell you that firsthand also as a parent of a junior, that they're still doing their AP exams. Their counselors are still having regular conversations with them. So the high schools have also not gone dark.
But Jason, they don't have to do a Regents exams either, do they?
That's right.
That's a bonus for a lot of kids.
And the SATs have been postponed.
Mm. And how about the people out of work, Kevin? Are we expecting them?
Ordinarily, when you get, if it's a regular economic recession and you get laid off, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I might be out of work for 6 months or a year here in this recession. Maybe I'll sign up for school, for college. But this is such a different recession. Now, you listen to some of the economic analysts and they say half of the jobs are not coming back soon, anytime soon. And others are, depending on who you listen to, others are saying, yeah, some will come back. Some certainly aren't going to come back soon. There's no question about it. It's going to be half, I don't know. And if you can figure out which half you're in, then you might very well, want to go to school. If you can figure out which half you're in. But otherwise, when people were first being laid off, they're thinking, this is going to be for a month or two, and then I'm going to go back to work. So I'm not signing up for school in the fall. once reality starts setting in, sadly for some, that they won't be going back to work anytime soon, then we might see more of that. But again, it's going to be later in the summer, as the economy ramps back up and people aren't being recalled, and they start to think about, just like students who haven't made up their mind about college, as we get into summer and get beyond this pause period, well, if I'm not going to be recalled, I might as well think about going back to school. But it's going to be, again, it's not going to be today. They're going to be hoping to go back to work in a month or a couple of weeks.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, for some of them, it's just not going to happen. And we've got to figure out which groups those are and work with them. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think unless anyone feels compelled on the information items to move forward with some of those tonight, I'm good. Adjourning the meeting. We did all the informational items are in the packet. And of course, finance and Trustees, as Anthony said, was we voted for that. And then the next meeting, is there anyone that wants to discuss anything or go through any of the information items?
And I'll just say what may be obvious, until we hear from the state and the county, most likely, and then nothing has really changed in the budget from the last budget report, because again, such big black holes there right now that we're waiting on. So nothing has really changed there right now. And now we may, if something does change in the meantime, we may need to pull a meeting together before the next regularly scheduled meeting. If we get a big black eye in the meantime and need to move some things quickly, we'll let you know.
Anyone have anything? Michael, anyone before we adjourn?
Okay by me.
Okay, then I'll move for an adjournment. Happy birthday, Barbara. Everyone have a great Memorial Day.
A second.
I'll
Thank
move.
you.
Thank you. Well, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.
What is that?
Barbara, I'm glad you got on.
Yeah, me too.
Did Tim help you with that?
Well, with a little